Hello and welcome to my presentation on chronic disease. This relates to everybody, not just cats, so it's a broad subject with a feline perspective. I don't believe that there is any one single thing that destroys health or causes disease. I believe it has multiple causes. So before I get into chronic disease, I just want to briefly discuss what I consider to be the three most important aspects of health that have the most impact, that are the causes of ill health. Diet is a huge one, discussed under different presentations. It's impossible to have good health if your body is nutrient deficient, as sadly most cats are today on the commercial pet food. Healthcare is under discussion here, and that's a really big aspect of the cause of disease. And the third factor, which has a major effect on everyone, is lifestyle. When cats are kept exclusively indoors, they have no access to the deeply healing effects of direct sunlight and contact with the earth. They also have limited, if any, access to the wide variety of medicinal plants that they periodically need. It's little wonder then that exclusively indoor cats live shorter lives than outdoor or indoor-outdoor cats. This cat is getting his maximum contact of healing earth energy. This is a great article that expands on the benefits to kids when they have access outside, and it's the same for us all. I quote, "Time kids spend outdoors in nature play has been steadily declining for decades, and it's costing them enormously when it comes to their physical and mental health. I feel my shoulders relax, my lungs open up, and I breathe. I just feel lighter. And all I have done is simply step out of my front door." End of quote. There may not be much you can do about that if you live in a high-rise apartment or flat, except move, but if you do have a garden, even in an unsafe area, then you may still be able to build an outdoor enclosure that they have access to, even for short periods. It will make a difference to their health. All animals are much more sensitive than we are, especially to energy, and especially cats. Most humans live very stressful lives, almost totally devoid of any contact with nature, living in concrete jungles, exposed to artificial stimulants, and taking very poor care of themselves. Their only contact with nature may be their cat. Cats, being the generous beings they are, try to help us. They do this by taking on our stress, trying to alleviate some of our burdens, and we can't stop them. The only thing we can do is to live a stress-free life ourselves, or at least to go some way to that end. Learn to meditate, take up yoga, tai chi or qigong, eat good food that is right for our species, get sufficient sleep, get EMF protection, learn what harms us, go chemical-free in the home and garden, maybe relocate or change jobs. Use holistic healthcare such as homeopathy. Looking after ourselves first may sound selfish, but if we're not in good order, we can't help others. And when we are well, it will help those around us, so our cats. So now let's get into the mammoth topic of healthcare. I'll try to keep this as simple as I can, but this is still likely to be totally different to what you already know, so may be hard to digest the first time round. This is a general discussion about health that isn't just about cats. Cats have very specific dietary needs, but their healthcare is fairly standard. We all share similar body systems, similar biology. We just need to know the main area of weaknesses in cats. So first, what's the difference between the current medical healthcare and the homeopathic system? The medical way of thinking has pervaded into everybody's consciousness, but it has some serious flaws. And there are at least 4 profound differences which I want to explore here. First, the medical way of looking at disease is to look at ever smaller and smaller aspects of the problem. Microscopes, electron microscopes, are able to see smaller and smaller particles. It's a reductionist approach. On the other hand, the homeopathic way is to look at the bigger picture. We look for causations that are peculiar to that individual. We recognise that everybody, though similar in the biological sense, is an individual. For example, one person may never have recovered from the death of a loved one. Another may still be experiencing panic attacks after a bad shock. Still another may be experiencing serious problems that deeply affect their life from a past injury, and these can be years ago. Causations can be anything and are very individual. And for most of us, it's not just a single problem that's the cause of our ill health, it's the accumulation of several things. Secondly, the medical way of managing disease is to kill off the offending pathogen with antibiotics, antivirals, etc. The homeopathic way is to strengthen the immune system. We look at the whole being, whether cat being or human being, who is out of balance. Otherwise, they wouldn't be ill. We don't want to kill anything. Instead, we want to strengthen the immune system. Then the body will deal with the pathogen itself just by altering the terrain, and so making the pathogen unwelcome. For example, we don't worry about infections. If the cause of an infection, real or potential, such as an injury, is healing well, then we know the body is dealing with the infection or its potential perfectly well and needs no extra help. Thirdly, medicine is a mechanical system, treating us like machines. One size fits all. Homeopathy treats us as the energy or vibrational beings we are. We all have similar biology and nutritional needs, but we are all different, all individual. And fourth is that medicine can be deadly, whereas homeopathy is very safe. One of the problems with medicine is that they don't see the individual. Many look at test results and make assumptions based entirely on these. One rather terrifying case I heard about was of a very active, slender, elderly lady who had gone for blood tests on the advice of her GP. He can't have read the test results thoroughly, they're often far too pushed for time, because he diagnosed hypothyroidism. This condition results in excess weight gain and sluggishness, quite the opposite of this lady. The result was that she reacted badly to the drugs, so more were prescribed. She went from bad to worse and ended up with cancer. Once on medication, doctors are very reluctant to challenge their colleagues. They don't look back and spot mistakes. So medicine can be very dangerous, as seen in the above case. Iatrogenesis is a term used to describe death by prescribed drugs. It's often cited as the third leading cause of death in people after heart and cancer. I'm equally certain that iatrogenesis exists in the veterinary world, and perhaps it's worse for cats as they're so sensitive, less able to deal with the synthetic and the toxic medication. In a recent feline case I had, the vet had x-rayed the cat and then advised instant euthanasia, or, let's be more honest, instant killing, because the result was the cat was only able to use 10% of her lungs. Again, the vet didn't look at the patient, who certainly had laboured breathing, but she was surprisingly active, had a good appetite, and showed no distress. No one has ever died as a result of faulty homeopathic prescribing. Homeopathy follows the principle of doing no harm. In other words, if you can't help, then at least do no harm. When the wrong remedy is taken, mostly nothing happens. It doesn't resonate with you. But if you keep taking the wrong remedy over a period of time, some may start to experience some of the symptoms of that remedy, although most are too subtle for many to see. It may be uncomfortable, but it won't kill you. However, as cats are very sensitive beings, it's really important to take into consideration their feelings on any treatment you use. They're the only ones who know what's going on within them, as well as the effect of the treatment. Health is never about one gene or one bacteria. It's always about the whole picture. Certainly a gene, our inheritance, may affect the particular part of the body affected, but it's the environment that determines whether we're troubled by it. Epigenetics, which is quite a new science, expresses this as the genetics loading the gun, but the environment pulling the trigger. So our genetic makeup may lie latent or dormant in us. If we keep the environment in natural balance, then it will remain dormant. But if we mess with the environment, such as with a poor diet, unsuitable lifestyle, stress, suppressive medication, etc., then it may come out of its hibernation and start to cause us problems. So disease doesn't just happen, and for the most part it's man-made. There are always several factors which contribute to this. Health is never about a single factor. Let's have a brief look at our immune system, our defence mechanism. Good health depends solely on how good this is. It's not dependent on a virus, a bacteria, or a gene. The world is teeming with undiscovered viruses and bacteria. It's the health of our immune system that defends us and prevents them attacking us. A healthy immune system, our defence mechanism, will be able to fend off common or mild diseases easily. It may not be able to fend off a really serious or debilitating disease, but it will ensure that you only have a short duration or mild malaise and that you fully recover, and quickly. A mild cold is one such example. But we're not born with an immune system. In our early infant days, our immunity comes passively from mother's milk. If she's eating and living well and so nourishes her infants well, then the immune system starts to build up perfectly. As we progress towards weaning, we may get a few mild ailments that give the immune system some practice to activate it. Fevers are wonderful immune strengtheners. A strong, alarmingly high fever shows a strong immune system at work. It will easily beat down that pesky virus that's trying to gain access to the body and do harm. Along with its high action, it will last just a short while. The fever produces acute inflammation, and when allowed to run its course, restores homeostasis. Health is restored. On the other hand, a slow fever shows a weak immune system, and it's unlikely to have any effect on the virus that's trying to gain entry into the body. Slow, smouldering fevers tend to go on a long time. I remember a mother telling me about her small son's fevers. He would have a strong, worrying fever that only lasted 12 hours or so. He was categorical in not wanting any medical treatment, but he did want the company of at least one parent for the duration. Afterwards, he would invariably have a growth spurt with more mental maturity. The health of the immune system builds up in childhood. Exposure to various pathogens may produce acute ailments. If these are allowed to run their course naturally and the immune system is healthy, then recovery will be swift and complete. And if they become problematic, good homeopathic treatment will support and strengthen the immune system. The natural way we're all exposed to pathogens is by contact and breathing. When we pass somebody who is already carrying, then we may breathe it in. A strong, robust defence mechanism will immediately recognise this and try to throw it out. A sneeze or two may do just the trick. If your defence mechanism isn't able to mount such a strong attack, then the pathogen may influence the next stage, and mucus is produced to carry it out. A runny nose develops. The next stage, if the immunity is poorer still, may be a sore throat, followed by perhaps a lung condition. And if all else fails, then antibodies of that pathogen are made to remind the body what to do next time, but only for that pathogen. This is a perfect, very sophisticated system in place, which we all have, either actively or in dormancy. And we'd all prefer to have such amazing defence systems that we never get past the sneezing stage. Compare this with the idea of injecting a pathogen directly into the body, bypassing all those highly sophisticated and finely tuned levels of protection. The world is coming to appreciate that chemical drugs are more harmful than useful, that there needs to be a change in people's perspective as well as an understanding of the purpose of disease. New scientific studies are showing the sophistication of animal organisms and that their complex systems function with very fine balancing rather than the crudeness of the medical system. This also means that healthcare needs to be personal rather than the current approach of one size fits all. There is what is known as a continuum theory, i.e. one thing leads to another. Homeopaths have known about this for the last 200 plus years, but now scientists at immunological research are also discovering this. Science is catching up, but it may take a long time for this to filter down to doctors and vets. When a fever, and so inflammation, often named as a disease, occurs, the medical mind immediately wants to suppress the symptoms because they don't understand it. So along come the antipyretics, the anti-inflammatories, the antibiotics, the steroids and so forth. In natural medicine, we call this suppression because it's not curing, but rather silencing the symptoms. These not only hamper the healthy process of efficient inflammation, they also act as stressors to the system. When this happens repeatedly, the system starts to shut down. It can no longer put up a healthy and efficient defence in the form of an acute fever. This results in what is called immunological silence or subacute inflammation. Over time, with repeated similar approaches, this leads to chronic disease. When you examine the past history of patients with chronic disease, especially those who were born healthy, you can see that they have progressed from repeated high fevers to reduced fevers, medically termed as improvement, followed by the onset of chronic disease, sometimes quite quickly, but often slowly. So there are 3 stages of disease. There's the acute, the subacute, and the chronic. An acute disease is a short-lived disease which will mostly cure itself. Most are harmless. There are some acute diseases that can result in death, but that depends more on the weakness of the immune system of the sufferer than it does on the disease itself. Examples of acute disease include sneezing, runny nose, fever, mild injuries, some bites, soreness from overexertion, mild burns, abscesses, food poisoning, etc. Time normally sees full recovery. Subacute diseases occur when the defence system is no longer able to do its job or allowed to do its job. Its hands are tied, as it were. Examples include allergies. With repeated suppression of the immune system, chronic disease develops. Examples of chronic diseases in cats include gingivitis, stomatitis, renal failure, arthritis, digestive issues, diabetes, heart problems, leukemia and cancer, and probably more. The medical system is unable to restore health from chronic disease, but good homeopathic treatment can. Because all life has an innate desire to live and to thrive, we all, cats included, try to make the best of a bad lot. Our bodies try so hard to keep us healthy. So chronic health can take years in the making, or should I say, chronic disease can take years in the making. And this means it's not going to go away quickly. But we can help our bodies and those of our loved ones so much better when we do, and without suppression. We can allow the fever without any worry or concern that it will become dangerously high. We can help our bodies by reading the symptoms. So instead of being frightened by our bodies and the symptoms they're expressing, we can learn to read them. What are they telling us? As already discussed, the homeopathic treatment of chronic disease includes looking at the whole picture. The diet, including the conception and the birth if known, the past ailments, the past treatments, the past traumas, as well as what has led up to the current problem. We look at the whole being, what they're sensitive to, what has impacted them, what their desires and aversions are, what are their thermal preferences, when are they most active during the day, what frightens them, and so on. This means we get a picture of the individual. When we match this to the remedy that most closely resembles this whole picture, healing occurs. This can cause some temporary but nevertheless disturbing symptoms as the body unravels past suppressed ailments and goes through a physical detox, which means staying in touch with your homeopath is essential and not disturbing the good work this deep healing has stimulated. As well as not expecting overnight results. Chronic disease takes time to develop, so it also takes time to unravel. This chronic work cannot be done by someone who has not received extensive training in homeopathy and is not qualified. Many vets who have only received very basic training in homeopathy would not be able to do this work, so they would be tempted to fall back on drugs. We need to start thinking differently if we want to improve our health and that of our loved ones. The current medical model isn't working, and there are so much better ways. So to recap on the different approaches between the current medical model and the homeopathic treatment, 1. Homeopathy looks at the whole picture. Medicine looks at parts. 2. Homeopathy is very safe to use. Medicine can be dangerous or deadly even. 3. Homeopathy aims to improve the defence system, the immunity, so we don't treat disease, we treat the whole being, because that must be out of natural balance or harmony to be ill. While medicine aims to kill the offending pathogen, which also results in inhibiting the immunity. Homeopathy is an energy system, which makes perfect sense as all animals are energy beings. Medicine works mechanically. This part is defective, so let's cut it out. Yet that defective part could be a result of a poor diet, poor living conditions, or a high toxic load. By starting to change one or all of these, harmony can be restored to that part as well as to the whole. Illness doesn't just happen. One thing progresses to another, the continuum theory. All levels of health, one thing builds on top of another until the strain breaks. The good news is that things can be reversed. Enjoy these exciting times of change.